Now, Kevin, it's been a totally outrageous news cycle for the past 72 hours, and we've got a very important and very special episode planned for tonight. Thank you for joining me for this special YouTube preview where we're going to inform everybody that at 7:30 p.m., slightly later than our normal schedule for the intelligence assessment, we're going to be beginning a show on patreon.com/Kevin_Shipp, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We'll be joined by Lee Stranahan. It's great to see you back, Kevin. How's everything going?
Hey, Jason. Great to see you, man. Good to be with you again.
And actually, Kevin, for tonight's special broadcast, Lee has actually launched his Patreon page. So people will be able to get the simulcast on 3 Patreon pages, and they can choose to support each of us or any of us. And I really like this method. You were one of the very first co-hosts to help me create this system where we're able to effectively counteract some of the censorship and the basically, shutting out of conservative voices and important information about topics that doesn't seem to jive with what the globalist, technocratic corporocrats want us to talk about.
That's right. I think we broke ground. We're the techno brothers, or well, you're kind of the techno master. I'm the techno grasshopper, but it's been working out really good.
Yeah, and the thing is, the idea in general for Crowdsource the Truth is that, look, I don't have the experience that you have. Obviously, I've never been in the CIA. Here's Lee. Perfect timing. Hello, Lee.
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Sorry, hey, Lee.
Sorry, I had to restart. Kevin, great to see you. How are you doing?
Good to see you too. Good, Lee. Good to see you too.
Yeah, I was just telling everybody, Lee, about how we've created this system here where we're able to do these Patreon broadcasts and kind of circumvent some of the censorship. Your YouTube channel was one of the first to fall in this technocratic overlord takeover of independent journalism. And Lee, for the first time tonight, is up on patreon.com/Stranahan. And I'm pleased to be the very first Patreon sponsor of patreon.com/Stranahan.
All right.
Well done, sir. Hey, can I talk about one thing about what you just said about me being my YouTube account, 1,000 videos, 10 years of work being deleted?
Yes,
Because I think it's very relevant to what we're talking about tonight. I just have been going over the timeline. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this. Do either of you remember approximately the first time Donald Trump publicly mentioned Ukrainian collusion and interference in the 2016 election?
I remember it clearly.
Okay, do you remember when that was?
Yes, there was a protest going on with these guys with torches who were chanting blood and dirt, and it was exactly what the Nazi protest in Ukraine was about, and you were talking to us about it.
Right.
I was. So Trump tweeted about this on July 25th, 2017. I'm going to point that out. He tweet at the time Jeff Sessions was the Attorney General. And if you remember, he was criticizing Sessions. Why aren't you going after Hillary Clinton? And he tweeted about Ukraine collusion. Now that was about, and this is in the same period of time that other people were talking about this Trump-Ukrainian collusion, including me. My YouTube account was deleted within about 2 weeks of that. After Jake Tapper on CNN called for me to be investigated because I'd said McMaster needed to be fired. What I didn't know then was that Trump had gone to McMaster and said, hey, what's up with this Ukrainian collusion? And according to Bob Woodward, McMaster told him that is Russian propaganda. So I'm going to point, and that's in Bob Woodward's book. So I'm saying there's a long history of snakes in the Trump administration who've been directly lying to him about what actually happened in Ukraine. And can I ask Kevin? Can I ask you a question?
But before you do, though, I just want to comment that I've observed a coy smile on Kevin's face when you mentioned Bob Woodward, because I see different points coming together from previous shows where we've spoken about Bob Woodward's deep state ties. So this is a perfect combination here.
Yeah. Well, I'm very curious, Kevin, because I've noticed a technique that I wonder. I work with John Kiriakou, former CIA, and sometimes I ask him stuff about how the CIA works because, like Jason, I've never worked there. But is there a technique? Is there a name for the technique of basically accusing the accuser before they accuse you? Is there like I've seen this over and over again. They point the finger at someone else. They say, oh look, you're colluding, but they're the ones who've been colluding. So I wonder if this is an actual like play in the CIA playbook.
Yeah, Lee. It's an actual procedure. It goes like this: admit nothing, deny everything, and make counter accusations. And we used to run around wearing T-shirts like that out on the ops training field and stuff. It's a kind of it's a CIA way of doing business, and it's part of the culture inside. So no doubt.
Doesn't it come from Saul Alinsky?
No, I mean, no. My guess is no. But and the reason I say that is this probably goes back to the formation of the CIA, coming from the OSS, which had been post World War II,
right,
and pre-Alinsky,
right, correct,
right.
But what I've noticed in the past few weeks, and I view this whistleblower. It's not a whistleblower to me. This is clearly a CIA operative who is in the White House doing a report and disguising as a whistleblower. But I view this as related to that Oleg Smolenkov story that also dropped. I see this as part of a sort of double tap by the CIA against Trump. And it seems like it's people associated with Brennan. I think we're going to find that these people, do you agree with that, Kevin?
I do indeed, and also possibly connected to Gina Haspel, who's been refusing to turn over information to Attorney General Barr. So yeah, these people come from inside the CIA. This whistleblower, I think as you mentioned, I'm convinced is no whistleblower at all. As a matter of fact, it just came out with a detailed report from this whistleblower today, and it was clearly written by attorneys, not by this person, but by several. It's got footnotes in it and all kinds of other crazy things that CIA officers, especially analysts, don't write.
Right.
So you talk about, here we go again, the shadow government going after the president of the United States again, and they're just trying a different route this way. But I can't stress enough, if I may, just for a couple of seconds here, I can't stress enough how unconstitutional and illegal it is for the intelligence community, especially the CIA, to investigate or to cast aspersion or to read and leak the transcripts of a sitting president. Yeah. The CIA has no authority to do that. This CIA officer and his cohorts had no authority whatsoever to take the transcripts that are done in the White House, transcribed by CIA officers strictly for the president. Those went over to the CIA, and these people were looking at them, talking about them. They had a group about them, and then this so-called whistleblower leaked. None of that is legal. None of that is constitutional. And here we go again, man. This is like Russiagate number 2.
Exactly what Dr. Corsi said.
Yeah, I would actually argue it's Russiagate 0.9. And the reason I say that is that the Ukrainian collusion with the DNC is what created Russiagate. And what I think we're seeing now is a cover-up of that initial operation, which goes back to it. You can start the timeline any number of places. I'll start with 2013, the Maidan. John Brennan was over in Ukraine. He went over secretly. I know that for a fact because I have sources in Ukraine.
That's correct. Yeah, right. That's correct.
And you know what I'm talking about, Kevin, right? I mean, Brennan is knee deep in this, and so is Comey. And the reason we know Comey is because of NABU, which is the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, which was set up at the request of Joe Biden. Joe Biden was one of the people instrumental in creating, after the Maidan coup, NABU. And Sitnik, who's the head of NABU, you got to remember, the FBI has an office in the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine. And anybody can look that up. If you go to NABU's website and type in FBI, you'll see they have a memorandum of understanding with the FBI, which means when the election interference happened with Sergei Leshchenko, the MP from Ukraine, who's a Soros and Pinchuk operative, and I can talk about that later, but he's a George Soros and Pinchuk operative, period. It's not even hidden. He's received money to travel from Pinchuk on behalf of Soros. That story is out there. When Leschenko came out with that black ledger that got Manafort knocked out in August, mid-August 2016, there's no way, since that information came from NABU, literally they got the black ledger and NABU has a press release on it. To me, there's no possible way Comey was not aware that that information was out. Now, does that sound far-fetched, Kevin? Or
No, not at all, because we know that the Comey and Brennan were joined at the hip in their counterintelligence operations. So one knows exactly what the other is doing in that regard, no doubt about it. And it's delivered to the president via the president's daily brief. So you have to make a definitive conclusion that Obama was aware of it also.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, listen, guys, we don't want to get too deep into the analysis just yet, because what we're really doing here, I know, you guys are getting very excited, and that is good, but we're going to be starting the full show in just under 20 minutes on patreon.com/Kevin_Shipp, and make sure you're spelling ship with 2 P's, patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. And for the first time ever, we're going to be doing a simulcast on patreon.com/Stranahan. So people who want to support Lee on his brand new Patreon page, this is your chance to do it. Get on there. Everybody already knows that you can listen to Lee every morning on Sputnik Radio, Fault Lines with Nixon and Stranahan. Fantastic radio show. I was just on there earlier this morning. We were talking about Epstein and the Giuffre versus Dershowitz oral arguments hearing that I was at just the other day. Lee also has the populist.us that people can visit, and regular viewers of the Intelligence Assessment with Kevin Shipp are well familiar with fortheloveoffreedom.net. That's Kevin's website, where you can read the Shipp brief every day. And if you want to learn more about Kevin and his time at the CIA, it's the perfect place to order Kevin's book from the Company of Shadows. The website is also going to give you the shadow code that allows you to read the redacted portions of the book that the CIA has illegally blacked out simply because they don't like what Kevin had to say.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. That pretty much sums up that story. Thanks.
So real quick, guys, in 3 minutes, sum up the idea that we're going to be talking about on the Patreon show.
Go ahead, Lee.
Oh, wait, he's throwing it to me. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, there's a lot of places. I had stuff I was interested. I've already talked to Kevin about it. I think probably we should talk about just the general context of going on. And I'm very curious about Kevin's take on this. I had this thought earlier, and I don't want to sound paranoid, but I really believe this. I don't think since about a month and a half before the assassination of JFK, when the New York Times story came out, where JFK was very concerned about the CIA, I don't think we've seen this much active, obvious CIA coup attempts since 1962, I would say. And I don't want to sound overhypey, but I agree. I've never seen anything like this.
I agree with you totally.
Yeah,
unprecedented.
And the Oleg Smolenkov story, which we can get into too, I'm very curious. See, to me, that was obviously the reason the Washington Post is the paper of disinformation on this is obviously there's longstanding historical connections between the Washington Post and the Central Intelligence Agency, right? And and this goes back to
1947.
That's right. Yes, this goes back to I mean, as early as you can get. And so I find it fascinating that this is happening and all these stories are coming out. And one of the things we'll talk about is the constant disinformation. The Washington Post has been given provable lies about Alexandra Chalupa, who's the DNC operative behind this. And I'll detail some of those because I've just been going over my research again, and it's shocking how the Washington Post is blatantly lying about this woman who they admit was coordinating with Ukrainian officials. They don't deny that, but they tell some huge whoppers about her, and I'll talk about that. And
Alexandra Chalupa you're talking about, right?
Yes, Alexandra Chalupa, who's the DNC operative who was coordinating with the Ukrainians at the embassy, including Ambassador Chali, including Oksana Shalur, who was the head of the embassy. And by the way, you'll notice in the transcript, Zelensky says to Trump, "Oh, I fired the ambassador."
Right.
If you go over to M Street in Georgetown right now, guess who is still the ambassador right now in the embassy? Charlie. Charlie has not been fired.
Why did he say that?
Because Zelensky's government has been taken over by Pinchuk and Soros operatives. Most of the people in the Zelensky government now have connections to International Renaissance, which is a Soros NGO, which is the major NGO in Ukraine. And this is not conjecture. This is firsthand from my sources in Ukraine. The Zelensky government has been completely compromised on this right now.
Wow.
And it is full of Pinchuk operatives, and we can talk about who Pinchuk is and why he's so important in this in the video as well, because he's huge.
This is going to be an explosive episode of the intelligence assessment, and I'm really glad to finally get you guys together. People have got to get over to patreon.com/Kevin_Shipp, patreon.com/Stranahan. I got to get my mouth working properly. Patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. There's more options than ever tonight for watching the intelligence assessment. And I also want to remind people who are just becoming familiar with Lee Stranahan, if you've just moved out from your home underneath a rock, Lee was the lead investigative reporter for Breitbart News, and now he is on Fault Lines with Nixon and Stranahan on Sputnik Radio. People can also follow Lee on Twitter. He is at Stranahan, and he's doing fantastic Periscope broadcasts every night or almost every night. And I was watching the one that you just did last night, Lee. Very informative of this entire Ukraine thing, and it's a lot to unpack. It's a lot to unravel. As you said, the Washington Post is just one among many of the deliberate agents of deception that are trying to fool people so that morons in Congress like Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Gerald Nadler can spoon feed everybody information that is actually counterfactual and hope that people will believe it. So I'd like to have everybody join us over on Patreon. In just about 15 minutes, we'll be starting up there. Anything in closing, guys, before we reset for the subscriber exclusive show?
I think we're good.
I hope I can shut up so I can listen to Kevin more, because I'm sure I have a lot to learn from Kevin on this. But you know, I've been working on this for like 3 years. And as you know, Jason, I had to quit my job at Breitbart because they stopped me from going in the White House trying to ask a question about CrowdStrike and subsequently about the Ukraine stuff. They tried to stop me, so I had to quit my lead investigative reporter job. And it's shameful what's happening. Anybody who's a Trump supporter has no idea how much the media you think you trust, especially Fox, is lying to you on this stuff. It's all limited hangouts at this point.
Absolutely, and it's very Nixonian along with that expression where it started. But you know, Lee, that's the thing. This is so third rail. In the transcript of the phone call, it's very obvious that Zelensky is the one asking about this, not Trump. Trump is talking about CrowdStrike, and he's talking about the software, well, I should say, the misreporting, the misdiagnosis that CrowdStrike had done of these Ukrainian artillery batteries, something you've been reporting on. So Trump wasn't talking about Biden at all. It was Zelensky who brought up Biden because this is the crucible of the corruption, as you said, that led to Russiagate. So this is an extremely important story for people to understand. If they don't want the United States to suffer a coup d'etat and have the president illegally removed. So we'll see everybody who's interested in that on Patreon in just about 10 minutes. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.